ॐ वक्रतुण्डमहाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा सरस्वति नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। नारायणं पद्मभुवं वसिष्ठं शक्तिं च तत्पुत्रपराशरं च व्यासं शुकं गौडपदं महान्तं गोविन्दयोगीन्द्रमथस्य शिष्यम् श्रीशङ्कराचार्यमथस्य पद्मपादं च हस्तामलकं च शिष्यं तं तोटकं वार्तिककारमन्यान् अस्मद्गुरून् सन्ततमानतोऽस्मि। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। अपारकरुणा सिन्धुं ज्ञानदं शान्तरूपिणम् श्रीचन्द्रशेखरगुरुं प्रणमामि मुदान्वहम्। यत्कृपालेशमात्रेण पुमान् पूर्णः प्रजायते तं वन्दे ब्रह्मविद्धुर्यं सद्गुरुं चन्द्रशेखरम्। संसारसागरनिमग्नजनोद्धितीर्षुः यो वातरच्छिवनृसिंहगुरुच्छलेन याढ्यान्धकारहरणं करुणासमुद्रं तं दक्षिणास्य मनिषं हृदि भावयामि। सदात्मध्याननिरतं विषयेभ्यः पराङ्कम् नौमि शास्त्रेषु निष्णातं चन्द्रशेखरभारतीम्। साक्षात्कृतं दयानन्दं परमार्थस्वरूपिणम् तत्त्वज्ञानप्रशास्तारं प्रणतोऽस्मि परं पदम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्तगोचरं तमगोचरम्
सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्तगोचरं
सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्तगोचरं
तमगोचरम्
तमगोचरम्
Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham.
Govindam
Govindam
Paramanandam
Paramanandam
Sadgurum
Sadgurum
Pranatosmyaham.
Pranatosmyaham.
Shloka number 9. Uddharedatmanatmanam magnam samsaravaridhau.
उद्धरेदात्मनात्मानं मग्नं संसार
Samsaravaridhau.
वारिधौ
योगारूढत्वमासाद्य सम्यक् दर्शननिष्ठया
योगारूढत्वमासाद्य
योगारूढत्वमासाद्य
सम्यक्
सम्यक्
दर्शननिष्ठया
दर्शननिष्ठया
योगारूढत्वम् आसाद्य सम्यक् दर्शननिष्ठया संसारवारिधौ मग्नम् आत्मानम् आत्मना उद्धरेत्. योगारूढत्वम् इति पदेन परवैराग्यम् इति इति चन्द्रशेखर भारतीस्वामिना उच्यते व्याख्यानाचार्यः. योगारूढत्वम् साधनचतुष्टय सम्पन्नः भूत्वा योगारूढत्वम् यदि आचार्य has seen yogarudatvam is sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, meaning the adhikaritvam asadhya, having accomplished the adhikaritvam, the qualification, the fitness for inquiry into the vichara yogyata prapya, vichara yogyatam prapya. Vichara in not anyone can do. Atma vichara. Atma vichara, it is about me. Then why not all can do Atma vichara? All can do Atma vichara. But the result of the Atma vichara in the form of jnanam is accomplishable. Or the who deserve, only the adhikari deserve. Because they are adhikari. So adhikaritvam asadhya, accomplishing the adhikaritvam, that is only through the preparatory sadhanas, karma yogena, chitta, shuddhi praptihi, upasanaya, chitta naischalyam. By that, making the mind a refined mind. The mind, before it was not refined, before inquiry into the Shastram. For Shastra inquiry, the mind also should be relatively, in fact, the mind has to be relatively prepared. That is what sadhana chatushtaya sampatti. It is not for the shariram, it is for the mind. When we talk about viveka, vairagya, all these are going to be discussed. What is sadhana chatushtaya sampatti? Shama, dhamma, titiksha, shraddha, samadhanam, mukshuttam. Is it for the shariram or for the mind? It is for the mind, for the person, the jivaha. So, therefore, the mind has to be made a refined mind. Samskrita manasa eva atma veditavyaha. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. The Upanishad says, manaha and vach, mind and the speech, not able to know the atma, they return back. It means mind cannot know atma. But in other place, the other place Upanishad says, some other Upanishad, Shuddha Samskrita Manasa. So without mind, inquiry into Atma is not possible. Atma cannot be known as an object, but because it is Siddhatvat, it is oneself, therefore cannot be known as an object. But mind has to be used for knowing that also. But mind cannot objectify. It's a very peculiar thing. Generally, we know a thing by objectifying it. But here there is no objectification of Atma. Mind cannot do. The mind has to be sufficiently prepared to know in fact, the cause of the mind. That which is the cause of the mind can be known only through that mind which is refined, which is prepared. That is what indicated by the word yoga rudatvam. Yoga rudatvam is sadhana chatushtaya sampattihi, and here the Acharya particularly equating to paravairagyam iti. So vairagyam is important. Vairagya is dispassion for the pleasures of the objects. The objects of the world are generally pull the person towards it. Paranchikani, Vitranat Swayambhu. The Indriyas are generally extrovert. When Indriyas are extrovert, how can Atma be known? It has to be withdrawn. And when Indriyas are extrovert means mind also goes out. So it has to be withdrawn. So therefore withdrawal is in the form of developing more and more vairagyam, objectivity, dispassion. So that is the primary sadhana. Vairagyam born of Viveka. So it's all understood because in the previous shloka it is said Vairagya backed up by Viveka. It should be a matured Vairagya. So therefore Vairagyam, Ayogaruratvam, and the Acharya here, in the beginning of the Vyakyanam, he quoted from the Gita and he substantiated that. Yogaruratvam tada uchyate. Kada Indriyani Indriyarteshu Karmasu na sajjate. And the person is the Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi is free from agenda for any objects of the world. It doesn't have any agenda for anything. Not only object, even for any person, anyone. So yoga rudattam asadhya. And by that, then shavanam, mananam, nididhyasanam, jnana yogena. Jnana yoga comprises the sadhana traya. Shavanam, the more, then more adhikaritvam. If the person is an uttama adhikari, shavanamatrena jnanam, jnanena muktihi, jivan muktihi, mokshaha iti. So therefore, samyak darshanam, clear vision, the knowledge, darshanam is knowledge. Drishyate iti darshanam. Darshanam, seeing. Seeing is knowing, understanding. That is darshanam. Samyak darshanam, clear vision. It's not the vision of the eyes. Clear vision, clear knowledge of the tattvam. And nishtha in that. Then nishtha shows that the knowledge is steady. There is no samshaya. There is no impact of the previous tendencies. So at no point of time, this knowledge cannot be forgotten, cannot be dismissed. It is oneself, the knowledge of oneself. So therefore, samyak darshanam and the nishtha in that knowledge. By that, samsara varido magnam, in the samsara, ocean of samsara, this atma, that is jivatma, who is immersed, submerged, may he lift himself. Iti shlokartha we have seen. We have read the Vyakyanam also, here the last paragraph. Acharya he quoted from the Adhyatma Ramayanam and also from Nasimha Karavalamba Stotram, beautiful quotations, appropriate quotation. Because there also the prayer is done to the Lord for protecting us by lifting us from the ocean of samsara. So, therefore, what is samsara? Samsara varidi magnatvam. Vivechana shunyasya manasaha shariradi sansaktatvam atmanah samsara varidi magnatvam. This immersion in the ocean of samsara is, yeah, what is that for Atma? Atma is immersed in the ocean of samsara when we say Atma, which is always Nityaha, Nitya Muktaha, Nitya Shuddha Mukta Swabhavaha Atma, which is ever free, never bound, never subject to time. So that Atma, because of the Abhimana with the Sharira Manasangata, Manasaha Shariradis Asantaktvam, because of the mind, and what type of mind? Viveka Shunyasya, the mind without Viveka. Shunya is zero. Zero means abhava. Vivechana abhavasya, the mind which non-inquiring mind, indiscriminative mind. The mind has no discrimination, doesn't enjoy the capacity to discriminate Atma and Anatma. Atma, Anatma, they are mixed up. And the mind is not refined to distinctly understand what Atma is and what Anatma is. Knowing Atma distinctly from Anatma, that capacity is required. That is, the person who can do is Viveki. That Vivekaha means Jnanam, knowledge. Viveka Shunyasya, Manasaha, the mind which do not enjoy this capacity, that therefore it has Abhimana with the Sharir Manasangata. That is what the samsara magnatvam of the Atma. That is what the immersion, submerge of this Atma in this ocean of samsara. Pity that metaphor is explained by Vyakyanacharya here. Then ataha, therefore, Shravana Mananadi Shastriya Samskara Samskritam Manaha Yada Bhavati. Without mind, Atma cannot be known. Without mind, Atma can never be known. Mind is required because it is meant for knowing. It is through that can be known. Through mind alone, anything can be known. But what about Atma? Atma doesn't have any property, doesn't have any attributes. If it has any attributes, then mind can know. Then how can mind know the Atma? The mind can know the Atma, meaning cannot objectify the Atma. Because Atma is not an object. Atma is not an object, therefore mind cannot know the Atma like any other object it knows. Because here the object of knowledge is the very subject. Then how can the mind know? In fact, the mind exists because of what? That the mind cannot know it. Not possible. Because it is already known. Who doesn't know Atma? Who doesn't know Aham? Aham is mixed up with Anatma. So separating Atma, separating Atma from Anatma in terms of knowing, cognition, that can be done only by the mind. Without mind, how can the mind be distinctly cognized from Anatma? Not possible. Therefore, mind, but that mind also has to be prepared. Therefore, Samskrita Manaha. Samskritam Manaha. Manaha Napumsakalinga, that is Samskritam. Shavana Mananadi Shastriya Samskara Samskritam Manaha. The mind now, which is, first it is refined by Karma Yoga Upasana, that is the preparatory sadhana. That gives Adhikaritam. The mind gets the eligibility for inquiry into the Atma. Then when the Jnana Yoga in the form of Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana begins, Then by Shravana Mananadi, Adipada Nididhyasanam and then Nishta Shastriya Samskara Samskritam by Shastriya. They're all Shastriya, Shravanam, listening to the words of the Shastram, Shastriyam, from the mouth of the teacher through Gurumukha. And Manana is again Shravanam, Punafpana Shravanam in order to remove the doubts. And Nididhyasanam for removing the Viparita Bhavana, then Nishta in that all these Shastriya. And the generate Samskara. Samskara is thoughts, vritti. Samskara or the samskara is refined. By that the mind is refined. Shastriya samskarena, the mind is refined. By that, yada manaha bhavati, samskritam manaha yada bhavati, by shastriya samskara. Previously it was, mind has got ashastriya samskara. The mind has samskara, the tendencies of ashastriya. Now it is made shastriya. By Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasana, Sadhanam. Yada manaha bhavati, samskritam manaha bhavati, tada brahmashunyam atma yathatmya jnana avaptya bhavati iti. Tada brahmashunyam. Brahmashunyam, there is no brahma, there is no delusion. And delusion is compared to the whirlpool of the ocean. So that Brahmashunyam, Brahma is not there, delusion. Brahma is atasmin tadbuddhihi, mistaking one thing for the other. Rajos sarpa buddhihi. On the rope, the snake is projected. That is the Brahma, delusion. Now, when the mind clearly knows what Atma is, there is no projection, there is no superimposition of Atma attributes on Anatma, or Atma, there is no Atma. Atma doesn't have any attribute, but Atma is Nityaha Muktaha, that Atma Chaitanyam. It is conscious that is not superimposed on Anatma. Anatma attributes are not superimposed on Atma. So that there is no Brahma, Brahmashunyam, yada abhavat tada, Brahmashunyam, Atma yatatmya jnana avaptya bhavati iti. Atma yatatmyam yatha bhavati. Yathatma yatatmyam. As it is the Atma, that knowledge of the Atma as it is, Atma can never be mixed up with Anatma. Atma is Satyam, Anatma is Mithya. There cannot be marriage between Satyam and Mithya. That is why Satyam and Mithya. Mithya can be dismissed. That which is Mithya is dismissible. So therefore, Atma is known as such by the knowledge of that. Bhavati iti Atma jnana avaptya bhavati. Brahmashunyam bhavati. The Brahma will go only by the knowledge of by knowing the Atma as it is. The mind will be free from Brahma. That free from Brahma, the free from delusion, that is what moksha is, that is what jnanam is, and it's what moksha is. Avivekinaha shastrajanya vivekata manasa uddaret anatmabhyaha apanayet. Aviveki, the manas, which is aviveki, doesn't have viveka in the beginning. That mind, aviveki manaha, because of the vivekam which is generated due to the shastra vichara, atma vichara, that is done by the mind. By that mind, uddaret, lift. By the mind, uddaret, anatmabhyaha apanayet. Uddaret is lifting. What is lifting? There is no physically lifting, there is no physically, there's nothing here to lift. It means anatmabhyaha atma, separate atma from anatma in terms of knowing, understanding, cognition. That is what uddaret. Uddaret is apanayet. Remove, separate. Anatmabhyaha is Panchami. Anatmabhyaha Atmanam Manasa Apanayet Uddaret. Anatmabhyaha Upanayet. So distinctly know the Atma different from Anatma. That is what is Uddaret. There is no other. Uddaret means raise yourself, lift yourself. What is lifting? There is no physical lifting. It is knowing Atma distinctly from Anatma. That Atma, Anatma, that Granthi was there. So that the knot. So removing the knot, clearly knowing Atma distinctly from Anatma, that is Uddharanam. Vidyate Hridaya Grantihi, Chidyate Sarvasamshayaha, Kshiyate Chasya Karmani, Tasmin Drishte Paravare, in Mundakopanishad, beautifully said that Hridaya Granthi is cut off. The Granthi, the knot in the form of indiscrimination, aviveka, that avivekam, that Hridaya Granthi, the Atma and Anatma mixed up, that is cut. Hridaya Granthi, Vidyate Hridaya Granthi, and all the doubts are resolved with regard to Atma. There is no doubt, there is doubtless knowledge. That is what Nishtha is. Aham Atma. When the person says Aham, you will not add anything to that. Aham is Aham. Not Aham so and so, not the accomplishments of the Upadhi or the Upadhi associated with Upadhi, whatever it is. Upadhi Dharma or some or the things are the people associated with Upadhi. All these indicates Aham is Aham. And the person knows that person is free from, the Jiva is free from karma. Tasmin Drishte, when Paravara in the Brahma Darshanam happens, Atma Darshanam happens, when Samir Darshanam happens, the person is free from the samsara. Tata cha tasmin parang mukhatva svabhavyat bakyeshu shariradishu sakte vasutaha asangasyapi logita spatikavat santaktasya eva vasamanasya atmanah upadehe anatma sambandha abhave प्रत्यङ्मुखतया आत्ममात्रसंस्तत्वे च आत्मा उद्धृतः इव भवति इति भावः पराङ्मुखत्वात् भाग्येषु शरीरेषु सक्ते वस्तुतः. Paramukhatvam is extrovertedness. The mind is all naturally extrovert. Therefore, bhagyeshu, shariradeshu, the external bhagya is external, towards the external objects, shariram, etc. It is saktaha, it is attached, it is generally, mind is extrovert, paramukhatvat, paramukha swabhavyat, bhagyeshu, shariradeshu, sakte, vastutaha, real, vastutaha asangasyapi. Vastutaha asangasyapi logitas patikavat. The Atma is, which is, really speaking, it is asangaha. This asanga Atma, because of his, the tendon, because of the mind, which has a tendency to go out always. So, therefore, this asanga Atma also is the person, the asanga Atma, the Atma which is always asangaha, not attached, it remains always detached, separate. Because of this paramukhatvam, it seems to be sangaha. That is why when we define Atma, we always, Atma is asangaha. It is because asangaha Sangatvam, that is the Sangatvam, Sangha, attachment, that is a problem. Therefore, we work to remove for Asangaha, and Atma is already Asangaha. We don't have to work for to make Atma Asangaha. It is Asangaha. Whatever it is, the Anatma as Atma is defined negative to it. Anatma is Sangha. Atma is Asangaha. Asangaha Atma. Anatma is Anityaha. Atma is Nityaha. Anatma is always Baddha Karanam. Anatma. Atma is always Muktaha, opposite. So this Atma which is always remains unattached. Therefore, it seems to be, it appears to be, because of the outward tendency of the mind, it seems to be associated with the external world, the objects of the world, sharira, the issue, body, mind, sense, etc. Like what? Like the logita spatikavata, like a crystal. A crystal is colorless. So crystal is asangaha. When a red object is placed before the crystal appears red as though now it is as though attached, as though it has gained the color, as though it has the color, as though it has become red color, but it is always asangaha only. Colorless crystal is always colorless because of the object, the rose flower kept near, it appears as though red. A prism is always prism, colorless. It has appears to be red prism because of the japa pushpa which is placed near the prism. Similarly, Atma also is ever asaktaha. Ever asaktaha, the asangaha Atma. So lohita spatikavat, spatikam. Spatikam is crystal. When the object is removed, the spatikam remains in its same, in its nature, colorless. Similarly, bhasamanasya atmanaha, the atma which bhasate, which shines in its own glory because of the upadhi. Upadehe anatma sambandha abhave. When upadhi is not there, upadehe anatma sambandha abhave. Upadhi is Samipe stitva sviyan gunan anyatra adhadati. That is what upadhi is. Definition of upadhi. Being near, it transfers its property, attributes, as though. It's not really real transfer, as though to the Atma. That is what upadhi is. Like the japa pushpa, the red hibiscus placed near the colorless crystal. That red hibiscus, that is upadhi. Because of which the colorless crystal, which is comparable to Atma, that becomes that appears as though red. Similarly, Atma also appears to be this Shariramana Sangatavan as though but Atma is always Asangaha. Therefore, Upadhi, which is Anatma, with that Atma doesn't have Sambandha ever. And that Sambandha Bhava, Pratyang Mukataya, the mind has to be withdrawn. The mind is extrovert, there will be there sambandha is superimposed, association is superimposed on the Atma. Therefore, the mind has to be. When the mind is naturally parangmukha, therefore Atma is which is asangaha, seems to be sangaha. Therefore, withdraw the mind from the vishayas of the world, including the abhimana with the sharirana sangata, including the abhimana with the body, mind, sense complex. By that pratyang mukataya, that is a sadhanam. Pratyang mukataya says Dhamma, withdrawing the sense organs, withdrawing the mind, shama, etc. Atma matra samstatve, when it is placed, when the mind is placed in the Atma, placing the Atma is the mind is focused on the Atma, samstatvecha. That is what Atma uddritaha iva, that is what lifting the Atma. That is what knowing the Atma distinctly from the Anatma. That is what Udrataha. Udrataha is lifting, rising. That is that which is submerged in samsara is lift up. What is lifting? Physical, not physically lifting. That is what here knowing Atma as such. It is what Atma Uddharanam. Cha Atma Uddritaha iva bhavati iti bhavaha. That is the idea here. Atma Uddharanam. Raising oneself, lifting Atma is not physically lifting. It is knowing Atma by withdrawing the sense organs and the mind and placing the mind on the Atma, knowing the Atma as such, not mixed up with Anatma. Atma, which can never be mixed up because it seems to be mixed up because of the mind, which is always Parangmukha, extrovert, and therefore withdrawing the Atma, withdrawing the mind and placing on the Atma, knowing Atma as such, that with the mind alone can be known. That is what Uddharanam, Atma Uddharanam iti. Bhavaha. Samsara varidau magnam atmanam yoga rudatvam asadya samik darshanishtaya atmana uddharet iti anvayaha. Anvayaha is the shloka which is there. First is Sandhi Vicheda is done. Then placing the words of the shloka in a prose order. So Acharya himself has given the prose order of the shloka, the Vyakyanacharya. Samsara varidau, in the ocean of samsara, this Atma which is Magnam. Magnam is Masjidatu, Taprataya. Magnam Atmanam, Atmanam Ditya Bhakti. The Atma which is Magnam, immersed in this samsara Varidhau, Saptami. Varidhau. And Yoga Rudatvam Asadhya, resorting to Yoga Rudatvam by Samik Darshana Nishta, by clear vision of the Atma, Atmana, by oneself, Uddharet, iti Anvayaha. Atmana, Atmanam, Atmanaha Uddharanam Kuriyat. So the Atma which appears to be Bantaha, that Atma is to be made free. It is already free. It should be known as it is by clear vision of the Atma. That is the lifting up of the Atma from the ocean of samsara. So may the Jivatma know the Swarupa of itself as Atma by Samik Darshanishta. That is the meaning. That is moksha. That is the meaning of this shloka. Now the next shloka, for which the Sangati is given. I will read the Sangati. Shloka you can repeat after me. Yoga Rodatvam Vishadaganneva Shavana Manana Nididhyasanani Sanyasa Uttarakallikani Samyak Darshanishta Vapti Sadhanani Tau Adau Aha Tavada Aha. So, sorry, yeah. Aha. Yoga sadhanani, not tau, sorry. Tavat aha. Kshimita. Tavat aha, not tau. Tavat aha sannyasa ityadina. Yoga aruruttam vishadagan. Vishadagan plus eva, nyamuttagama sandhi. Yoga aruruttam vishadagan. Having explained Acharya, the previous shloka, Shankaracharya, what is yoga aruruttam? Having explained now in this shloka, Shravana Manana Nididhyasanani. These are the sadhanani, jnana sadhanani. Jnana yoga comprises Shravana Manana Nididhyasanam. Shravanam cha, mananam cha, nididhyasanam cha, shravana, manana, nididhyasanani, itaretra dvanda samasa. Palampale palani, Shuddhavat. Sannyasa uttara kalikani. See, in the Vyakyanam, Acharya always will, Vyakyanam as well Shankaracharya also, he will say sannyasa. So Shravanama Nididhyasana, who inquires into Atma 24/7, sannyasi. Because because this requires 24/7 commitment. It is not a child's play. Therefore, one person has to be committed. He cannot engage himself with other activities of the world at the same time. That's why in our system, the Vedic scheme of life, after Grasta Ashrama, the Vanaprastha, then Sannyasa Ashrama, completely relieving oneself from the duties of the world. He has all the time for himself. Already he has spent enough time for the society, for the family, society, etc. He has contributed and he also has gained. Uh, he gained and he also contributed. So there is earning and as well as sharing. All these things he had done, and by that he has made himself an adhikari. He has nothing to gain further in this world. Therefore, he withdraws himself from the Vyavahara, and that's what indicated by Sannyasa Ashrama. In that Sannyasa Ashrama, the person inquires into the Shastram, dedicates himself to the study of Shastram, that is in the form of Shavanam, Maranam, Nididhyasam. These are the sadhana. Therefore, Sannyasa Uttara Kalikani, after Sannyasa. After Sannyasa, the sadhanas, Shavana, Manana, Nididhyasana, sadhanani, Samyak Darshana Nishta Vapti sadhanani. Kidrishani, Hetani, sadhanani. What type of sadhanas are there? Are these Savana, Manana, Nididhyasana? Acharya says, it is Samyak Darshana Nishta Avapti sadhanani. These are the sadhana, the means for the gaining of nishta in the vision of Atma Tattvam. So therefore, tavat aha sannyasa ityadina. So after sannyasa, for gaining samyak darshanishta, that is jnanam, the person resort to the jnana yoga. Iti Vividisha sannyasa, he talks about Vividisha. After sannyasa, then inquiring into the Shastra, doing Shavanam and Nididhyasana, Vividisha sannyasa. Even before sannyasa, the person, suppose, if he studies Shastra, like what we do, that is Vidvat. After that, sannyasa can be taken, need not be taken. Sannyasa means you should not be afraid of it. It's not sannyasa, it's physical sannyasa. Sannyasa means withdrawal. Withdrawal from the activities of the world, our participation in the family. After some time, better withdraw yourself naturally. Otherwise, you will be made to withdraw. When others, they come to the power, they come to maintain the family, then you don't have to poke your nose. Therefore, better to withdraw gently from the duties of the family, handing over the responsibility to the next generation. That is sannyasa. Then all the time is available for you. You have to prepare for the next journey. That is sannyasa, in fact. So therefore, more than physical sannyasa, it is manasa sannyasa, antara sannyasa, not to bhagya sannyasa. That is why we have to take sannyasa ityadi now. The word sannyasa, if you analyze, sam plus ni plus asdatu. As means to throw. Samyak nischayena throw. Having clearly determined, having clearly ascertained, you throw. Having clearly ascertained, you throw. You give up. Throw means you give up. What you have to give up? First of all, we don't have anything to give up. What we have to give up is ajnana. The ajnana, that is what sannyasa is. So, but as an ashrama, it is helpful for the person as a sadhak, for the sadhaka to commit himself exclusively to jnana yoga sadhana. That is sannyasa iti. So that time is available for himself. But for that, the proper person also has to be ready. You have to see many factors. So without taking into sannyasa as such, sannyasa ashrama as such, within the grasta ashrama also, like as the person can take to study of Shastra and do inquiry. In time, maturity will come, then there will be natural withdrawal from the family, being in the family, or away from the family. That is choice. There lies our choice. But we don't have any choice now. Now let us read this shloka. Sanyasya sarvakarmani bhavabandha vimuktaye
सन्न्यस्य
सन्न्यस्य
सर्वकर्माणि
सर्वकर्माणि
भवबन्धविमुक्तये
भवबन्धविमुक्तये
यत्यतां पण्डितैर्धीरैः आत्माभ्यासमुपस्थितैः
यद्यतां
यद्यतां
पण्डितैर्धीरैः
पण्डितैर्धीरैः
आत्माभ्यास
आत्माभ्यास
उपस्थितैः
आत्माभ्यास उपस्थितैः आत्माभ्यासे उपस्थितैः संधि आत्माभ्यासे उपस्थितैः अयादि संधि इकार लोपः doubt will come atmabhyasah upasitaihi or atmabhyase. No, it is atmabhyase upastitaihi atmabhyase upastitaihi. Atmabhyasa is atma, abhyasa is practice, self practice. What is a self practice? Atmabhyasaha is atma vicharaha. Atma vicharaha, how it is done? What is atma vichara? Atma vichara is done through Shastra vichara. Shastra vichara is atma vichara. Shastra vichara means Shravanam, listening to the Shastram, and Mananam, and Nidhyasanam. Therefore, Atma Bhyasaha is nothing but this Shravana, Manana, Nidhyasana, self-inquiry, inquiry into Atma. Therefore, Atma Bhyase Upastitaihi. Upastitaihi means who are committed in the inquiry of the Atma by them. This is Karmani Prayoga. So, Ke Upastitaha, who are those committed to this Atma Bhyasa, self-inquiry? Panditaha, Virehi. They are the given in Tatiya Bhakti. They are the people. The person should be a Pandita. Panda means Jnanam. Pandita is who has got Jnanam. So Panditaihi, and should be Panditaha and Dhiraha also. The person should be a knowledgeable person. Panditaha. So, therefore, Pandita, when we say Jnani, one meaning is that, or the person should be informed person. The person must have knowledge of the Shastram. That is Pandita. The person must be having the necessary qualification, adhikaritvam for inquiry into the Vedanta. It means the person must be intellectual, should be able to use the mind to its fullest capacity, should be a thinking person. Because Panda, that's knowledge. When we say knowledge implies thinking, we cannot just swallow the teaching also. So the person should think rationally. So rationally, logically. See, if you think rationally, logically, then naturally with the with the science improving now, quantum, etc. Now as in the modern world, there are people who say this, yeah, life is nothing but it is just energy which arises when these things are put together. This body, everything is put together. All the parts of the body, the cells, everything. Some energy arises. That is what life is. When that goes away, that energy disappears, appears in some interpret scientifically, but they cannot go one step further. If if the questions are asked, there are no answers to it. So you cannot say life is a chance cause. It just arises and then goes. It's energy. The person who says also it's highly intellectual. There are some scientists, some people who say they will one day they will objectify consciousness, put it in the lab, and the test tube find out, and they will say this consciousness will be explored and discovered. There are highly intellectual people, highly competitive and competent and intellectual people. They are Panditaha in their field. But here we're talking about the Pandita when we say the person is rational to be able to dismiss even the contentions of those scientific, the people who argue scientifically. And at the same time, we don't say anything illogical. We say logically. But our logic is in keeping with the Shastra. Science purely depends on perception, purely based on sensory data. Atma is not available for any senses. In fact, senses are senses due to Atma. Science purely depends on sensory perception, and here the Atma is not available for sensory perception at all. Therefore, it is completely different area. But when it comes to the qualification, as much the logical thinking, the rational thinking is required for inquiry into science. Similarly, here also it is required. Because we have come to spiritual inquiry, one cannot be dumb and one cannot be stupid or stupid. Therefore, one has to inquire. One should be able to do the vichara properly. Therefore, intellectual competitiveness is much important. That is what is indicated by the word Pandita. It is not just swallowing the teaching, it is understanding, clear understanding of the teaching based on the rational and logical thinking. We cannot apply scientific logic. Here the logic is different. One must be able to, first one must be able to convince himself. Then only inquiry into Shastram starts. The person is not convinced, then he will not inquire to Shastram, or even if he inquires, his inquiry always will be with the doubtful inquiry. So therefore, clear conviction with regard to Shastram, what the Shastram reveals. That is what Shraddha, what we say, Shastre Pramanya Buddhihi. So, and the person who has the knowledge of the Shastram and he has Shraddha in the Shastram enjoys clear thinking. That is Pandita. And he has got the knowledge of the Shastram also. Therefore, he enjoys scholarship also, scholarly person, Panditaha. And he must be Dhiraha. Dhiraha stands for Viveki. He must have the capacity to distinctly understand the To distinguish here, when we say Viveka, there are Viveka at different levels. Panchadashi, we have got Viveka Prakaranam, Pancha Viveka Prakaranam. The first five are Viveka Prakaranam. Dvaita Dvaita Viveka, Atmanatma Viveka. So the Viveka at different levels. So Viveka with regard to Purushartha, but that is starts with the spiritual journey, starts with the Purushartha Nishchaya, Viveka. There are four Purusharthas are there. Among the four Purushartha, what are the nature of each Purushartha and why I choose moksha? Inquiry, Viveka. So when Viveka is there, then the person naturally becomes a mumukshu. Who can be really a mumukshu? A Viveki. So that person who has clearly understood Parikshalokan Karmachitan Brahmanaha Nirvedamayat, that Parikshalokan, having examined the world, the world means the world which is available for our perception, this loka, this world, having clearly examined the nature of the world and having understood this world will not give me security, this will not give me the happiness, it will not make me a purna, because it is anatma, it cannot give me. What I want is moksha, and what I can gain through the world is only either dharma or artha or kama. Artha and kama only I can gain. Artha and kama, they are subject to change, is subject to loss. So I want that which cannot be lost at all. So that Viveka, that Purushartha Nishchaya, Viveka, starting from that, it starts from that, I want moksha, and moksha is only through knowledge, therefore Atma Anatma Viveka. In fact, in the world, when the person leads the life, then there also we requires a Viveka, Dharma, Adharma Viveka. As a religious person, it starts with Dharma, Adharma Viveka, Dharma, Dharma Viveka, and as a spiritual person wanting to be free from this samsara and he enters into this spiritual journey, then for him, Atma and Atma Viveka, starting from Purushartha, clarity with regard to what he wants, Viveka is implied, Viveka is required, then Atma and Atma Viveka. So the one who has understood all the other pursuits are useless. Only Atma Jnana is the means for moksha. It is alone is the remedy from samsara, for samsara. Iti, the clear understanding. One who is called Dhiraha. Dhiraha, the word is used in Gita many places, stands for Viveka, Viveki. So Abhyase Upastitehi Panditehi Dhiraihi, by the Pandita and who is a Dhira, who is Upastitehi, who is dedicated to this Atma Abhyasa, Yatyatam, may Yatyatam is Karmani lot. Sanyasa Sarva Karmani Bhavabandha Vimuktaye Yatyatam. Bhava is samsara. From the bandha, samsara bandha, bondage of the samsara. Because the person experiences most of the time pain, therefore he feels bound in this world, doesn't enjoy freedom, conditioned by the world, doesn't enjoy freedom. So the seeking freedom is natural for the human being. If it is not accomplishable, if freedom is not there, then the tendency to be free itself will not be there. Because it is, everybody wants to be free. Therefore, there is something called freedom, moksha. It means I am bound now, so I want to be free. And the samsara is bandha karanam, this samsara. Therefore, from this bhava bandha, from this bandha of the samsara vimuktaye, for vimukta freedom, for gaining freedom from this bondage of the samsara, sanyasya sarva karmani. Sanyasya is lebanta. Having given up all the karma, it means he has given up the grasthashrama. He has withdrawn himself from the actions. It means he has got all the time for himself. Sannyasa sarva karmani. He has cleared, he has done all his duties. So there is nothing to be done. So he has settled the things in life. Sannyasa sarva karmani. Yatyata may striving be. Yatyata may he work for. May the Pandita and Dhira, by them, effort may be put for what? For gaining moksha. Yatyatam, lotlakara. Dhatu is yatudhatu. Yatete, yatante. And karmani lot. Yatyantam. It is karmani and there is no karma. That is why it is pratham purusha ekavachanam. Yatyatam. So atma bhyase upastitaihi panditaihi dhiraihi bhavavanda vimuktaye sarvakarmani sanyasya yatyatam. May they work for moksha by resorting to the sadhana, shravana manana nididhyasana, by giving up all the karma. So it means what? It means sannyasa ashrama. That is why Acharya in the beginning itself, the Vyakhyanam, he says, sannyasa uttara kalikani. Iti. So Acharya, they clearly mentions sannyasa uttara kalikani. It means the sadhana, the person can completely, can dedicate his life and time for the sadhana only when he is free from the duties of the world. That is why sannyasa uttara kalikani. That is why sarva karmani sannyasya iti. We are trying to understand the shloka as such. Okay. So sannyasa means, as I said before, it is antara sannyasa. The person has antara sannyasa. That is better. That is far. It is difficult, but it is better than bhagya sannyasa. So that is what in Gita Bhagavan says. Anashita karma palam karyam karma karotiha sasannyasi cha yogi cha naniragni nachakriyaha. Iti very strongly he uses. Who is the real sannyasi? That person is a sannyasi who is karma palam anashitya. He just does karma for Ishvara Prityartham. Doesn't have any you know that he is not a karma pala hetu. Therefore, doesn't worry about the results of action. It will come. My duty is to work. Anashita karma palam miha karyam karoti. That person is sannyasi, not that person who has given up all the Agni karma, who has given up Agni. Agni means Agni is used for rituals. Who can do ritual? Only Grasta. So, not that person. Agni is also used for cooking. So that means the sannyasi will never should is given up all these Agni related things. It means he should not do rituals and he should not cook also. Cooking also is not cooking also is prohibited for sannyasi. Sannyasi cooking that they take a special permission from the guru when they take sannyasa. That's why niragnihi, the word is used. Niragnihi means Agni has gone from, so all the Agni related karma has gone from whom? That person niragnihi sannyasi. Niragnihi means sannyasi ityartaha. That is why sannyasi never cooks. He begs and are supposed to eat, begging and. But there are of course exceptions. When the person takes sannyasa, he takes special permission from the guru for cooking. There are maybe times when he has to cook for himself. So there is, the idea is, Agni means that Agni karma, rituals. Who can do rituals? Only Grihastha. But that's why we say, now, in that shloka, Bhagavan says, that person is not a real sannyasi who has given up just Agni karma. Who is a sannyasi? Who has given up the tendency to anchor for the results of action, longing for action, that makes a person restless. That the person who has given up, that person is a real sannyasi. See, that is what the goal is. That is what is important. So sannyasa means we need to understand anashita karma palam. So karma palam should not dictate our action. Our action should be dictated by the order, by our consciousness. No, conscientiousness. We have to do karma because that is abiding by the order of Ishvara. Cannot violate the order of Ishvara. Therefore, karma karoti iti. We will stop here. We'll commentary to this shloka. We'll see in the next class. Om Purnamadav Purnamidham Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Dhanyavadaha.
ಧನ್ಯವಾದः.
धन्यवाद गुरुजी. धन्यवाद श्यामजी.
ಧನ್ಯವಾದ ಅಜ್ಜಿ.
ಧನ್ಯವಾದ ಅಜ್ಜಿ.
ಧನ್ಯವಾದ.
ಧನ್ಯವಾದ ಗುರುಜಿ.
ಧನ್ಯವಾದ.